All right. Thank you for joining us tonight here at Wasteland's Thursday Night Standard. I'm Brad Van Slyke, and joining me today is...
Nathan Satterfield.
All right. How you doing, Nate?
I'm doing just fine. Excited to see some mages battling good old standard Magic the Gathering.
Slinging spells, summoning dudes, fighting for life totals.
Here in our first round, we have Robert McGinnis playing the red-green Dragons deck versus Jeb Boone, who's playing a Tarka red. Lots of burn spells, small creatures, very aggressive strategy.
Yeah. Monastery Swift Spears, Abbots of Carol Keep. Lots of little dudes with prowess that just, take a burn spell to the face and my guys hit you harder. Very strong.
What can we expect from Robert tonight?
So depending on which list, there's a couple variations of Regular Dragons, but most of it is play some Mana Dorks, play some Sylvan Caryads, drop Dragons fast. Stormbreath Dragon is a huge house in the deck.
Absolutely.
And then Artarka usually will clean up the board and just swing in for a finish. So it looks like we have Jeb on the play.
I see a couple of mountains. I think he's also got a Wooded Foothills. So 3 lands and some spells.
Yep.
Both players kept 7. It's like no 1-drop for either player. The Foundry Street Denizen, 1 turn too late.
Yeah. So Foundry Street Denizen, of course, is the 1/1. He's a goblin, right?
He is a goblin.
Yes. He's a 1/1 for red, and he has ability that says whenever a red creature enters the battlefield under your control, target creature gets +1/+0.
Interesting that Robert also doesn't have a 2-drop. So no mana accelerant creature
Yeah,
that he wants to play, face up. He may have a copy of Rattleclaw Mystic. I'm just waiting to play it as a 2/2 and just block with it.
We got a fetch land here for Jeb.
Or perhaps try and get a situation where he can play it and flip it and make some mana.
And that looks to be a Monastery Swift Spear.
Yep, Swift Spear here.
The 1/2 with haste and prowess.
Yeah, that's going to trigger Foundry Street. So we have a 1/2 and a 2/1 rumbling in. We'll see what sort of spells come down, if any.
Cracking a fetch for Jeb.
A Lightning Strike to the face. Robert's going to take 3 immediately.
And then that'll.
We'll see if he has anything before combat. It's going to be 4 more damage. Should Robert not have a response. Can't quite see what he's got in his hand. Looks like a Draconic Roar is going to come down. He's revealing a dragon here. Okay, so that's going to deal 3 and take out that. And it's also going to deal Jeb 3, I believe. Robert takes 2 more. And Jeb's at 16.
Okay.
Here we go.
Yeah, that whole cycle of reveal a dragon for bonus effects has been seeing a lot of play in Standard as well as the last Standard.
I think people have moved away from it a little bit here recently with the advent of Origins. I'm not sure if it's correct to do that. I think the dragons are still very, very powerful. And all of those extra abilities that you get, the incentives to play the dragons, probably you still want to keep playing them. So here's a Nissa.
Yep. Grabbing that forest. Nissa, a lot of people are afraid to play Nissa early because they really want to get that walker mode. But I'm of the opinion that Nissa's pretty much good to play on almost any point of the game. Early, she fixes your hand. Like if he's not playing mana dudes, getting those lands in hand's gonna be strong. And of course, late game, getting her to flip is very strong.
Looks like a Hordling Outburst for Jeb here. That's gonna trigger the Foundry Street 3 times, making it a 4/1. Oh no, that's a copy of Rabble Master. My mistake. It's just shiny.
It would still trigger twice.
It is gonna trigger twice. So Robert gonna block. Take 1 here. Down to 14. Gotta find an answer to the Rabble Master soon.
Yeah, a lot of people have been theorizing
Down to 13
about the potential of more of a mono red goblins deck, turn 2 pile driver, into turn 3 Rabble Master.
Yeah,
is kind of the go-to. But as we've seen, Jeb's playing more of the kind of burn style with creatures that benefit from the spells.
I think if we had maybe 1 or 2 other payoffs for being Goblin in tribal flavor, other than just the pile driver, I think the strategy could become powerful enough to play. But as it stands now, pile driver itself is not big enough of a payoff.
Yeah. Because really the only like Goblin Lord effect would be what Obelisk of Erd from M15. Yeah, and that's, I mean, the Convoke is nice, but it's too slow.
It's still 6. You can do it. It's not great.
Here's a Stoke.
Stoke, Jeb's gonna take 3 from the trigger. And here we go. Looks like 4 more damage. Gonna take Robert to 9. There we go.
Both these decks play at pretty blistering paces.
Mm-hmm. Sylvan Caryatid and Haven of the Spirit Dragon.
Oh, yes, Thunderbreak seems pretty good against this matchup. Having multiple in play is probably really nice.
He did play it a little bit late. I think at its best, it's on turn 3.
Turn 3, because once again, those Elvish Mystics and those Caryatids coming down earlier are super sweet.
Yeah. Looks like just going to jump in front here and take 3, falling to a dangerous life total of 6, 2 burn spells. He's got all these.
He's going to reveal that he's got 2, 4, 7 damage in his hand. 2 Wild Slashes and a Lightning Strike.
Yep. Okay. And that is going to do it for game 1. Game 1's going to go to Jeb Boone. As we look into the sideboard here, what sort of things can Robert bring in to slow down the assault of Atarka Red?
Let's see. Red-green. Well, I think really he fell on the back foot there because he wasn't hitting his mana dorks early. Red-green does very well because it drops huge threats very soon, like we mentioned, the Thunderbreak on turn 3. I think, I'm not sure about his side per se. I haven't seen the list. But, you know, in terms of gameplay, maybe mulligan a little bit more aggressively. Make sure you have that mana dork. There are some stuff that he can come in. Most of the stuff is coming in on the ground. Spells. He's probably not going to be playing any fog effects.
No, I don't think so. A couple of the things I might be looking for him to bring in, it would be perfectly reasonable for him to play something like Anger of the Gods. You know, maybe it doesn't work super well with your mana creatures, but at the same time, you need to be able to clean up large groups of creatures that Jeb is putting out.
Right, because we saw 4 goblins out there at one point in time.
If he's got Dragon Fodder or, you know, if he plays a Rabble Master, there will become a large number of tokens on the field, and Robert may want to be able to sweep them. Another way to deal with having lots of creatures rumbling in is to play Hornet's Nest. I don't know if he has access to Hornet's Nest, but that is excellent against Mono Red traditionally.
I've seen, in terms of like the low amount of tokens, some Poly-K, Plukranos, because usually the regular dragons can get that mana out really quickly. So monstering it just for like 3, you know, play it at 5, next turn at 6, drop a land, go to 7. You can wipe out his whole board and have a pretty big threat left over. Plus, anything with more than like 5 toughness is going to be a little bit outside of his burn range.
I think this matchup is typically in favor of the slightly slower deck, which I think Robert is. He's got very powerful plays that can come down earlier than normal because of these mana creatures. So if he can get a hand that allows him to play, you know, the turn 3 Thunderbreak Regent into turn 4 Stormbreath, I don't see a world where he loses that match.
Yeah, and normally, like, Stormbreath, I mean, 4/4 haste, huge threat by itself. The monstrous ability is always nice when they have lots of hands. It's probably not going to be the case against Jeb. You know, Mono Red tends to pitch through its cards very quickly. But I think with a lot of the damage he's going to take to himself, anything he's going to do to answer those dragons, he's going to be taking 3, sometimes 6, and just 4 in the sky. He's probably going to finish him off very quickly.
Once again, while the players are shuffling up, we would like to remind you that on Saturday, we have regionals coming up, Star City Regionals. Standard tournament.
It's going to be quite the event. We're expecting a good number of people, several rounds of competitive level standard Magic, huge prizes, wonderful trophies. All three of us, me, Nate, and Jeff, will be commentating, rotating. We'll be all over the place. We'll be on stream. We'll be in the field, seeing what you guys are playing, talking about the decks. It's going to be the next big standard event.
Absolutely. We're also worth mentioning the event is not going to be located at the store, but it will be very close nearby.
Yeah, just across the street.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And that's Santa Fe Mall.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look on our Twitch page, there is a regionals flag. If you just scroll down a little bit, that will link you to the event page that has all the details.
Yep. We've got our Facebook event, and then from there, there's also a link to sign up and pre-register.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like both players have kept 7.
Ooh, a gain land.
Oh, I see.
That's actually a very interesting play.
So
Burn tends to try to get the exact 20. So gaining a small amount of life here or there. Oh, and there's a turn two Mystic. Okay, so we're hopefully on board for our turn 3 threat.
We just need one more red source. We may be able to see either the Polychronos that you mentioned or Thunderbreak Regent coming down.
Looks like we had a... that's a Dragon Fodder.
Dragon Fodder.
Original art.
With the Prowess trigger on the stack, Wild Slash.
Wild Slash. And there it is.
Yep, there's turn 3 Thunderbreak. That was exactly the start Robert needs to be able to win, especially coupled with that Disruption spell for Jeb's one drop.
Mm-hmm. It's going to slow him down.
It definitely will.
Haven of the Spirit Dragon, again, can tap for any color mana if it's for a dragon spell.
Correct. That's supplying Robert with the second red. I see a couple copies of Stoke the Flames for Jeb. We'll see if he chooses to spend his turn removing the dragon, taking 3, but also being able to attack with one of the leftover Dragon Fodder tokens.
And he's going to be taking 3.
No, he looks like he's going to play Dragon Fodder first. That's essentially free if he does go with the Stoke.
If he goes for the Stoke, yeah. I mean, he's going to be taking 3 from that dragon either way. So dealing with it early kind of limits that damage to just 3.
Yeah. Yeah, here comes the Stoke. It's going to take care of it. There's the trigger. 3 damage to Jeb from that, and then 1 to Robert from the attack. It's going to tap. Let's see if Robert has a follow-up.
Looks like another gain land.
Mm-hmm. Going to bring him back to 20, and another Thunderbreak Regent. This is a good start. He may become swarmed here if he's not careful. I think there is... I see a copy of... All right, there's Swift Spear. Here's another copy of Stoke. That's going to take Jeb down to 14. He's got 3 attackers. Excuse me, 4 with the hasted.
Yeah, so that'll be a 2/3 for the Swift Spear, and then 3 more. So 5 damage coming in.
Exactly right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these decks don't hold back. It's creature removal burn.
I believe the last card in Jeb's hand is a copy of Roast. I may not have seen that properly.
Yeah, I believe that's what I saw as well.
I don't know how many targets that's going to have if Robert continues to play.
Because Roast is
dragons.
1 in a red for 5 damage to a creature without flying.
Without flying, yeah. Very, very key in this matchup. Not going to be able to hit those dragons, either Stormbreath or Thunderbreak.
Looks like we have Caryid.
Caryid and Pass from Robert. Looks like he may be out of gas here. I believe that is Roast, and I think that's Mana Confluence is the draw.
Dragonlord Atarka. She's a 7-drop, is that correct? Or is she 8?
7.
7. Because would be a pretty nut. Oh, here we go.
Just gonna
roast your
prowess.
He's gonna tap it for a green response.
Yep. Looks like he's gonna get back the Thunderbreak. Use that mana to activate the Haven.
But again, a Dragonlord Atarka is something you really want to cast when you're going wide like this. The 5 damage when it enters the battlefield split up will take out all those tokens, and an 8/8 Flying Trampler will clean up a game very quickly.
Absolutely. We also see that there's a copy. Oh, Whisperwood Elemental. That's quite nice.
Go to Whisperwood. The
manifest end of
4/4 end turn manifest a creature. That's going to help him kind of stop the wide.
Now that the Roast is out of the way, he's clear to just begin making an army of 2/2s and take over this board presence.
Yeah.
Jeb low on cards.
The red green
It's more
dragon
for him.
almost is basically land and creatures.
Oh, I think that's a copy of Atarka's command that Jeb just top decked. Yes, there it is. 3 to you. Pump my team. Is that quite lethal? No.
+1/+1 in reach for the team.
Yes, so 6, 9 damage. I think Robert is going to go to 2. It's 3 damage immediately, and then combat is gonna... Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and there's the green part of the Atarka red is for the Atarka commands. But as I was mentioning earlier, Whisperwords I really like in the red green dragons because the entire deck is basically lands and creatures. There's a few spells like Wild Slashes, but most of it is dudes. So you have a very high chance of actually flipping face up anything that you manifest.
Yep. Robert choosing to deploy his Thunderbreak that he bought back from the graveyard. Jeb, it's not a burn spell. He's not flipping it over. Just passes the turn. Robert, some signs of life here. Jeb did take 1 off of Mana Confluence. We're going to get that right here. Looks like a Draconic Roar. It's gonna...
He controls a dragon.
He does control a dragon.
A second Draconic Roar.
So there's 6 damage right off the bat. Creator's Claws.
Yeah, and that's
and
with
attacks
his
for 8. Yep, that'll do it.
Woo!
Robert with the win, stealing that game out of nowhere.
There was
seemingly.
so many cards in Jeb's deck that just end that.
And very interestingly, he was only able to pay 0 in the X cost and get the 2 extra damage because the spell
ferocious.
was ferocious.
Yes.
Correct.
Creator's Claws is X in red, where it does X damage to creature or player. But if you have ferocious, it does X +2. So he actually, yeah, like you mentioned, he played it for 0. Get the extra first. Now, Creator's Claws for a little while fell out of favor, but a lot of the red-green dragon decks, or at least putting it in the side and bringing it back in, and it seems to be doing really well with the new Origins. I'm a fan of the card. I think it's very flavorful, and I like it a lot, so I'm really happy to see it back.
Absolutely. I think that the card is very powerful, and it can win you games out of nowhere, as fireballs often do, and it's worth an inclusion. Maybe not in your opening 60, but out of the sideboard, some staying power, some reach, gives you the ability to take games you had no business being in. For instance, that one.
Yeah.
Not necessarily because it was a fireball there, but because it was able to, remove a blocker for 1 mana. And he was very mana efficient with those last 3 spells, able to supply the damage he needed to get through. That was very much out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Able to deal 14 damage through 3 blockers.
Great play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because you would see, like, a lot of decks would want to play, like, the Roast. Because, for a 2-mana removal spell, 5 damage to a dude, it's almost always better. But when you're running dragons, and your entire deck is basically mana dorks and dragons, the Roars are just... That 3 damage, I mean, he took, 3 of those spells during this game? 9? Almost half his life went to that.
That's true. He did play 3 copies of Roar that game, I believe. Yeah. It may have been one in the first
One in the first,
game?
yeah. Either way, 6 damage as a bonus effect, very strong.
Absolutely. No, I do think it was only 2 copies in that game because most of the damage came from when Jeb stoked the Thunderbreak region.
Yeah, he took
6 damage off of that, 1 for Mana Confluence, and then the other 13 was just completely out of nowhere in that last turn. Very interesting. I think that a deck like Red-Green Dragons derives its power from a lot of synergies where, the cards themselves, not necessarily overwhelming, but when you see the sum of the whole, not necessarily just all the parts added together, you get a little extra in there.
Yeah.
Able to take advantage of the aggressive nature of some of these cards.
Yeah. So I believe it was maybe last week or the week before, we saw a red-green list that was running Xenagos, God of Revels. Not all red-green dragons run it. I don't believe Robert's currently running it. What is your thought of Xenagos in the red-green dragons deck? Do you like it? Do you dislike it?
I think of it as the sort of sideboard card that you want in order to slow play a matchup. It allows you to put an indestructible threat on the board and apply pressure without flooding the board and overextending into wraths, because we know that cards like Languish and end hostilities, and those types of cards are just everywhere. Lots of control decks, lots of Abzan control decks, blue-white, blue-black, whatever your flavor be. Even Sultai is a new emerging variant of control. But the ability to just play a indestructible threat and, slow play with one creature is very, very powerful. I don't know that I want it in every matchup. So I would say that it is a very, very powerful sideboard card.
Okay, and it looks like we have Jeb keeping his 7 and Robert is going down to 6. See if we see a better 6 here.
He knows in this matchup that he needs to mulligan aggressively to good starts, and I didn't see what his opening hand was. But he needs to have, the starts that have the mana, the extra mana. It looks like this one's not it either. Oh, the high 5 for the mulligan. The mulligan 2/5. Unfortunate. Also on the draw. Very, very, very rough start for Robert this game. If Jeb's hand is as aggressive as we would expect, it's going to be difficult for him to combat this on such low resources.
He's going to need to have those Wild Slashes and those Draconic Roars in his opening 5 just to answer some of those early threats.
And probably not have the dragon until it's time to play it.
Yeah.
He can certainly still win a game
on
5.
Absolutely. With a perfect 5, you can still be dropping that turn. And he's on the draw, like we said. So we can still very easily see a turn 3 Regent, a turn 4 Storm Breath. It's gonna be a little rough though. You gotta have the right cards in hand. Ooh,
looks like Jeb gonna
go to 19 himself and swing for 1.
Start off with a Monastery Swift Spear. That is one of the more explosive starts.
Yep.
The scariest thing I think Jeb can do is to play
Foundry
turn 1 Foundry Street and then go into
Dragon Fodder, Hordling Outburst, just crush. Yeah. No, that's the play that scares me. Because before you
just a Temple of Abandon for Robert, gonna scry.
There's a Tarkus command for Jeb on the
it was either a quick keep or a quick bottom. Missed that one. I believe it was a quick top. Just 1 damage here.
Looks like I believe that was an Abbot. And we have a turn 2 Sylvan. Very, very good.
Caryatid is a strong one here. Being an 0/3, you can safely block.
Yeah. Hexproof, so if he wants to pump to try to kill it, none of those burn spells are going to be coming at the creature. He's going to have to target him at his face. Hurts, but keeping your defenses on the ground is going to be very relevant for this game. I don't think we saw anything with any kind of evasion in Jeb's deck so far.
Correct. Sometimes these red decks like to play Phoenixes. There's the hasted 2/2 Phoenix, and also the 4/1 that deals them damage and recurs itself.
Yeah, Ashcloud Phoenix.
Ashcloud Phoenix, that's correct, yes. Looks like we've got Mana Confluence and copy of a Tarkus command, and there's a Dragon Fodder. Probably going to see that. Yeah, Dragon Fodder's going to make some guys, going to swing in. Robert calling his bluff, gonna block. See if Robert has a follow-up.
I really like a Tarkus command in this. Oh, there's Thunderbreak.
So he does have a good 5. This is the type of start that he needs to win these games. Copy of Searing Blood, the draw for Jeb Boone. I do not see.
Searing Blood is 2 damage to a creature, and if that creature dies this turn, its controller takes 3.
Correct.
For double red.
I do not see a Stoke the Flames this game in Jeb's hand. So that is not going to be what happens here. Here comes an Atarkus command. Jeb going to take 1 off of the Mana Confluence.
I'm guessing it's going to be...
Pumping the team. Looks like Robert's going to take 7 here, unless there's other effects. I also expect to see perhaps a Searing Blood.
Well, let's see. The team gets +1/+1. That makes the...
Oh, no.
Wouldn't the prowess trigger make it a
there is the
2/3, and then the +1/+1 should make it a 3/4?
Yeah, I think if he plays the Searing Blood before combat damage, his Monastery Swift Spear lives.
Yeah.
He's going to take 1 more. So that was a total of 10 damage, I believe. Yes, 18 to 13.
Taking the 3 from targeting the Regent.
Crater's Claw. And an Elvish Mystic.
Do we know how many cards Robert has in his hand?
I can't quite tell. Looks like 1.
1, okay.
He is on very, very few resources. This is a perfect time for Jeb to deploy Abbot of Carol Keep. Looks like he's going to play Rabble Master and Swift Spear. Just going to get in there with several guys. Block and block. Robert going to take 1. Trade off the Mystic with a Goblin token. Jeb Boone is A-okay with making that trade.
Anger.
There's
as
the
we
anger.
mentioned before.
Yep,
Yeah,
absolutely.
He was going very wide. Was going to have even more goblins on the next turn.
Jeb Boone still has the Abbot, so he's got a little bit of gas left in the tank, and there's also a land.
Yeah.
Probably should come up with the Abbot first. Yep, there it is. We'll see what the trigger
Abbot
yields.
is a 2/1 with prowess that when he enters the battlefield, you get the new red draw effect, which is you exile the top card of your deck, and you can play it until end of turn. And that's an Exquisite Firecraft.
Exquisite Firecraft, you. Oh my.
I believe Spell Mastery is enabled for that. Can't be countered.
We have a life total of 39. Although a dragon. A dragon is not a bad top deck for Robert. Also one that would be very painful for Jeb to target. Carry to the draw. Oh, he's attacking in, getting feisty. We're coming down to the end of it here. Looks like lands in Jeb's hand. Unfortunate draws for him. Jeb down to 1. A little bit of gamesmanship here from Jeb Boone.
We should mention that these players are friends, and that
absolutely
wasn't just a very rude loss. No, that was all in good fun.
No salt here. In keeping with the good-natured fun, the high five for
the high five for going to 5.
Yeah, well, interestingly enough, Robert able to pull it.
Oh yeah.
On 5.
No, like we mentioned before, the red decks, they need all their gas to kind of go to the face. They get into that top deck mode very quickly. Even with the Abbot, we saw him just draw 3 lands there because he had to answer Robert's threats. If Robert was playing maybe some smaller dudes or like some tokens, he would have just been able to trade those off with creatures and save those removal spells for
Absolutely.
Robert's face.
You always hate to see a red deck lose with your opponent at 1, 2, or 3 life. It makes you wonder if you had played something slightly differently in that game, if you could have won. And I think there was a situation in game 3 where if he played before combat damage happens and he gets the extra prowess trigger on the Monastery Swift Spear, and instead of letting it die as a 3/4, it stays a 4/5. All of the damage happens the same way because the effect from the Searing Blood stays on until the end of turn.
Mm-hmm.
So if it dies at any point that turn,
and he had a few turns between that trade and the anger, so that could have made up.
It's an extra attacker for each one of those turns, and a potential extra damage for each one of those turns.
Yeah, if you played any spells in there, the prowess makes it even hit harder. So you're definitely seeing stuff.
We're getting word from our table spotter. We may be trying to get a second match out to you here. We're going to get word from him shortly. But to go back to our point, red players have to be very careful about how they deploy their spells, how to sequence. In that situation, I think Jeb may have been able to pull this game out. Not sure if that changes everything.
JD is up 1.
Yep, looks like we are going to get another match in here for you. We have green-white Megamorph if I believe correctly, that's what JD was on last week.
Mhm.
We had
That
him
sounds
in
correct.
our feature match for round 4. We also have Smear Black playing Mardu aggro. I'm going to get the life totals and the overlay.
Yeah,
All
we
that
saw.
ready for you guys.
We had a
We'll get you
chance.
some more standard action here.
We had a chance earlier today to actually look through Samir's list. It seems very interesting.
It did.
It's called Mardu aggro, but it's really, really red-white, and it splashes black for just a few things, mainly some disruption, a little bit of removal. I'm really excited to actually see this list because, you know, looking through a deck is one thing, but actually getting to see it in action can really show you some of those interactions maybe you don't see just looking through.
That's certainly true. I was wondering to see how this deck shapes up when you compare it to some of the other aggro decks in the format. It looks powerful on the surface, but you don't quite know if the synergy is there like some of these other cards. For instance, the Atarka Red has synergy between creating goblins and then getting the extra Trumpet Blast effect, if you will, from playing the Atarka's command. Things like that, small things like that.
Whereas you have like Red Green Dragons where almost everything triggers Ferocious, so you can drop those Crater Claws for 0 and still do damage.
Yes. I'm going to update the archetypes here real quickly for you guys. We would also like to plug the website here real quickly. We have a coupon for you guys. If you go to the wastelandgaming.com to buy singles or board games,
Sealed, anything. Actually, it's
sealed
we have
product.
If you use the code STREAM, that is STREAM, all caps, you can get 10% off your entire purchase here at the Wasteland Gaming. You know, this is our gift to you. We appreciate you guys listening. You know, we love doing this, and we hope you're enjoying it as well. And so we wanted to give back.
This is the perfect last chance opportunity to get your orders in for regionals. Come pick up your cards and play with them by Saturday.
Don't have to worry about shipping. You can pick up your order here in the store.
Yep.
Again, regionals is across the street.
Absolutely.
I believe there's a couple groups actually just walking over from here in the morning.
I think that's true.
It's a very short drive. Yeah, it's going to be exciting. So obviously we won't be playing in regionals as we will be here in the booth. But if you were playing these regionals, what would you be playing, Nate?
I would certainly be playing some variation of the Thopter control decks. I am a big fan of Thopter Spy Network, and I think that the card is very powerful, and once it finds the correct shell, I think it's going to be one of the top decks in the format. I don't know if it's powerful enough in any of its iterations to dominate the format as some of the previous control decks, aggro control decks have. But we've seen it do well already. It's top 8'd. It's put lists into top 32. I've played the deck some, not a whole lot. I'm not a super experienced pilot, but when I did play and the deck was doing what it was supposed to, you get this very unnatural snowball where you just feel like the opponent has no chance of coming back because you're drawing 1, 2, 3 extra cards per turn, and your opponent just has no chance of getting out of the hole.
Yeah. Plus, you know, playing with we have the Darksteel Citadel, the land, indestructible land, very, very difficult to get rid of. Always turns on the Spy Network, always making that Thropter. And because of that land, you also have the, was it Artificer's Epiphany? Basically, instant speed divination. You have the discard card if you don't have an artifact, but it's very easy to have artifacts. I'm a big fan of the Hangerback Walker. I think it's a wonderfully designed card. It's powerful, it's flavorful, it kind of fits all of the right things, in my opinion. So I like that deck a lot as well. All right. We have our players presenting here.
Getting ready to go to game 2. So some of the cards we'll be seeing from Samir's deck. He is playing, once again, Monastery Swiftspear.
Mm-hmm.
He's playing some
Abbots.
aggressive cards like Abbot of Carol Keep. He's playing some copies of Thoughtseize. He's playing some copies of Kolaghan's Command. He's slightly more grindy than your typical aggro deck is, but he also still has the same amount of reach. He's got lots of burn spells. I believe he's playing Wild Slash. The other mode on Kolaghan's Command is 2 damage to the face. So he's got the reach to get there, and he's got aggressive starts.
We have a mana confluence here from Samir.
Mm-hmm.
I believe both players have kept their opening 7.
That is correct.
And gain land?
Yeah, so that puts JD to 21.
Mm-hmm.
And a Soulfire Grand Master. One of the interesting cards you get to play in this deck because you do have access to white and red mana. Fleecemane Lion for JD. Very efficient. A card that has been playable, at least in fringe circumstances, since its inception and since its printing. Watchwolf. Classic standard
Ravnica.
staple. Yeah.
Looks like we
It's a
had
lightning strike.
And Samir's probably going to gain 3 here. Because I believe, his instants and source, your spells have lifelink.
So he's going to gain 5 this turn.
That's such a wonderful card. Your spell, instant sorceries have lifelink. It seems like on the surface that wouldn't work, but in the rules of Magic, obviously there's nothing against it. Lifelink just means when this card deals damage. It's not creature. It's just when this card deals damage, you gain that much life.
Mm-hmm. That is correct. He has activated Mana Confluence a couple times, so he's down to 23. Mm-hmm. Elvish Mystic, gonna eat a Wild Slash. Samir's actually gonna net a life from that. Activating Mana Confluence, but dealing 2 damage. An interesting start here from Samir.
And even though he's in 2 colors, he can kind of, because I believe there's many copies of the Soulfire, he can kind of be a little greedy with those Mana Confluences. Normally you have to be a little careful, watch your life totals, but he's gaining a lot of that life back, so he can kind of just throw those cards out.
Absolutely. And he's slowing JD down by killing these creatures.
And there's a Courser.
Courser looking to recoup some lost card advantage.
I believe that's a Den Protector on top?
It is a Den Protector. Looks like Temple of Plenty, going to scry, keep it on top. That'll gain JD 1 life. We have life totals at 18 for JD and 26 because of Soulfire Grandmaster.
Yeah. Soulfire Grandmaster, also wonderful with its pseudo buyback ability. I believe it's 2 red-blue hybrid?
I think that is correct.
Yeah, so you can pay 4 extra mana, and instead of your spell, when it resolves, going to graveyard as normal, it just goes back to your hand.
Favorite story revolving around this card is, we see Crackling Doom. So that's gonna deal 2 damage or lose 2 life. Do you remember the exact wording on that?
I believe it's deal damage, but I will check that. The first part, of course, is sacrifice the creature with the most power target player has. And when you only have Courser, that 2 power is the most.
That is correct. Monastery Swift Spear joining the party here for Samir. A painful mana base for him, though. If he hadn't had this copy of Soulfire, it would be very difficult for him to keep his head above water with these Mana Confluence draining him every turn.
Crackling Doom deals 2 damage to each opponent. So had this been multiplayer, he would have gained many life.
That's true. So he does gain the 2 off of Crackling Doom because that spell has lifelink. We have life totals at 13 to 28. Anyway, going back to the story I was going to mention, favorite interaction I've ever had was in a Commander Cube game where I had a sweet 5-color deck, and my deck was very well able to set up and use the ability of the Soulfire Grandmaster, and I ended up casting and buying back a Blasphemous Act. It gained me 169 life, and it only cost me 1 mana. Just the excellent.
So we had a collected company here, and it looks like we got a Death Mist Raptor and a Fleecemane Lion. Super Watchwolf.
See here what's going to happen. I think Samir is thinking about the play before blocks.
He probably wants to deal with this Fleecemane early. Most of his removal is through raw damage, and he threatens to potentially make that hexproof and indestructible next turn.
He does have copies of the Crackling Doom to get rid of it, but he's got to clear out every single other creature on JD's board for that to be what happens here. Looks like murder.
Well, if it does go monstrous, it'll be a 4/4, so it will be the biggest creature. So Crackling Doom will just hit it.
Yes.
but there are many. I believe he's got a couple other. I mean,
Yes,
Siege
yes,
Rhino.
you're correct.
He gets to choose because it is a sacrifice effect. So if he's got other things with 4 power, he will get to choose.
Yeah, there's the Murderous Cut, and looks like
A Mardu Charm.
a Mardu Charm, 4 damage there.
Yeah.
That's gonna gain. So Samir's gonna take 3 from his lands and gain 4. So he's actually gonna go up to 29 here. He's gonna gain 2 more off the damage, and 2 prowess triggers means JD takes 5 down to 8.
8 to 31. Quite the spread.
Samir's removal heavy hand seems to be quite potent here against JD. JD does have another copy of Collected Company and many other cards in his hand. Looks like Samir not going to want to walk into this one. Just going to say go. End of turn, we get a Den Protector and nothing else.
Ooh.
Not spectacular.
Coco.
A face up 2-1 that's difficult to block on the surface of things, not very valuable.
And it's what, a 16 turn clock by itself. He can pretty much just ignore that creature. It's a blocker.
Absolutely.
It's a blocker, and that's it right now. Looks like Samir has a land in hand.
Can't quite tell.
Yeah, it was Caves. Okay.
Caves of Koilos. Another copy of Collected Company. Dramoka's Command, Courser, Glare, Elvish Mystic.
Well, at least he's going to get 2
Temple,
creatures this time.
Oh,
Ooh,
there's
Death
Death
Mist.
Mist. That's quite good. Courser and Death Mist here are excellent. JD's going to be able to hopefully make his 5th land drop. Yep, there it is. I think he'll be able to trigger Raid here and cast the Wingmate Rock in his hand and get 2 3/4 flyers to get him out of this hole and gain him some life.
Yeah, he's safe to attack in here with his 3/3
this
Dead
is,
Touch.
This is an excellent attack.
And Wingman Rock, very relevant text whenever it attacks. For every attacking creature, you gain a life. So he might be able to start shoring some stuff up.
Absolutely. Here we go.
And he'll get his 3/4 bird friend because, again, it's not a solo rock. It's a Wingman Rock.
Gotta have his mate. There is the trigger. Lightning Strike you with buyback. I like it.
Ooh.
Samir having to tap all of those mana confluence, negating the lifelink on the damage. But it does take JD. Of course, the 3 from Deathmist Raptor takes him down to 28. JD does take the 3, and he's at 5 now. So Samir looking for any other 2 damage burn spell or greater.
Well, I mean, he's basically got lethal in a turn cycle here. Oh, wait, he can attack up to gain life.
If he doesn't have removal spell for rock, he's going to find himself hard-pressed to finish this game because there will be lots of creatures rumbling in, and that will definitely outrace this lightning strike that keeps happening. Maybe if those lands didn't hurt Samir, he could end up in a racing situation and win, but because he's taken so much damage and he's not able to gain the 3 when he's buying this back, it's going to become very difficult for Samir.
Yeah, because unlike a lot of special lands, Mana Confluence always does damage. Caves, can tap for colorless or take a damage to tap for some colors, but Confluence is damage in whatever color, no other mode. And he's just going to pass back here.
I believe Samir may have a copy of Urborg to save himself from that fate.
Yeah, I believe he's running
have it in his hand.
one in the board, I believe. And because Urborg makes everything a swamp in its addition types, it will give those cards that don't have other modes that mode. We see it a lot in Modern, so you can tap your Eye of Ugin for mana, things like that.
Not quite sure what Samir has in his hand, but he did draw that copy of Dramoka's Command, which is going to become very, very good here at some point whenever Samir decides to go in on something. If he ever taps his mana low enough, it could be very difficult.
Looks like he's going to attack 2. That'll bring JD up to 7. Samir will take 6, go down to 22.
Just getting the life totals correct here, making sure everything is right from the table to you. Another 3 damage at the end step.
Oh, yeah. And then he bought it back.
Yeah. The life gain... Yep. Okay. That is correct. So 5 to 22.
Tap 3 Confluence, gain 3 life. His life total stays the same.
Yes.
JD goes down by 3. Yeah.
Math is hard.
Math is okay. Math is fun. Math is fun.
You would have...
Viewers at home, stay at school.
You would... Well, sure. You would have many people who would be chomping at the bit even to disagree with you. I will not be one of those people. This situation's a little difficult because there's so many moving pieces. We are doing our best to stay on top of it, though.
I'm just saying, roll 20 d6 to do a fireball, super fireball. Count that up. That's just fun. It's just pure fun.
You just separate them into 10s, and it's fine.
That's math. That's still math. All right, well, let's get back to Magic.
Anyway, Samir in the tank, deciding what to do to get out of this hole. There are too many creatures on the other side of the board staring him down, and if he does not have a way to get rid of this wingmate rock...
Looks like he's...
Passing of the turn.
Had a Nomad Outpost.
It's going to be very difficult for him to finish this game off. Yeah. Looks like JD.
I'm not sure. I feel like I would have played my land here. You know, even though you're representing only 2 cards in your hand.
Ooh, Arishan Cleric on the top of JD's deck. That's another 3 life coming to him very, very soon.
Again, this is game 2, so both players saw their deck, so they're not running their mains. They are running post sideboard. I feel like that's probably a card he brought in.
Oh, absolutely. There's lots of burn spells. Wingmate trigger. JD's going to go up to 9. We'll see if Samir has any blocks. Does not appear so. So I believe that's 12 damage all told.
And then we have a Morph, which probably a Den Protector. Flip up for 2, get back those Death Mess Raptors in the yard. He's looking at a nasty swing coming in at Samir for JD's next turn. Land. Getting life off the lands. We may have missed.
Once again, we're figuring out. He's still got 5 lands, no trigger from Courser. Gained 4 off of the trigger from the Wingmate Rock. Should have him at 9 to 10. There is that Urborg. So now these lands not quite so painful. Find out if Samir is able to race. I think at this situation, it's too little too late. There's too big of a board for JD and too much life gained from the Wingmate Rock. There's the Glare of Heresy going to take out the Wingmate Rock. So no more triggers upon attacking.
He slowed the life gain, but JD's built up such a board state that it might not matter anymore.
So 1 prowess trigger on the Monastery Swiftspear, making a 2/3 rumbling in. I think Samir is just trying to see if he can sneak in some damage and steal this game. There is a Dromoka's command waiting in the wings, so I do not think even if this damage were to go through, there would be enough in Samir's hand to finish this game off for him.
Yeah, it looks like we just went to damage. Those creatures bounced.
Yes.
And he's going to pass the turn.
JD able to untap, find this Arishan Cleric. See what else is on top for him. Looks like a Fleece Mane Lion. No more lands.
Looks like it probably wasn't the Den Protector. That might be a Death Mist and Morph.
Potentially.
Because I feel like you would use your 2 mana to flip it up and a turn get those extra attackers in.
Probably. I don't think you're that scared of burn spells. And it's only 4 mana anyway. I don't know that Samir, with only 4 mana, can deal you 9 damage. So, leaving up the Dromoka's command. Oh, well, here is a Dromoka's command. Looking to perhaps fight and take out the lone blocker. Nope, just going to go ahead and attack. think that's an attack to take Samir down to 3 with damage from the lifelink.
Probably a fight off the commands. Usually we see that with +1/+1 counter and fight.
Well, he's not cast that yet. I think Samir down to 3 and JD's gonna gain 3 here. Go up to 12. I believe that's a Seeker of the Way, the alt art.
Yeah,
So
the 2/2 prowess gains lifelink.
Gets lifelink when you also trigger the prowess.
He may be able to
So here's an attack with just the Wingmate Rock.
swing it in.
He's got the Dromoka's Command for protection. I don't know that Samir's going to be able to stop this. He's got to gain life and response somehow.
And Seeker
No longer has access to his
lifelink spells.
lifelink spells from the
Seek,
Soulfire.
even if he has an answer, Seeker's got to be able to block something. There's nothing coming in on the ground. He's not going to be running. Well, I don't believe he's running a Tarka command to give his guy reach. It's
No access to green. He does have Mana Confluence, but I do not believe he's playing the green cards.
Oh.
Looks like he's just going to run out these burn spells. They're going to get met by Dromoka's Command, and that should be all she wrote. He's going to have to expend both of them. Looks like Lightning Strikes. Yep, he's going to pack it in. Knows that he's been vanquished. JD takes down this match, I believe, 2-0.
2. And I believe we just heard the buzzer for time in the rounds.
Yes.
So that was
Very,
a timely
very
finish.
Very timely, indeed. So we were wrong. He was keeping up Dromoka's Command. He flipped over the Morph, and it was a Den Protector. Interesting. Very, very interesting.
You know what? I can see that. You leave that Den Protector back. You swing it. He's swinging it with those Deathmist Rasters every turn. Something happens. They get answered. Maybe he gets blown out by a crazy block. He's still got that Den Protector ready. He flips him and he get all his Raptors back. So he's using it less of a get a huge board state and swing for lethal and more of a just in case something goes wrong. I've already got lethal. I'm going to leave some backup. I actually like that play a lot.
Well, either way, it has paid off for him. JD wins this match 2-0. That's going to be it for round 1. We will be back shortly after pairings with another feature match in round 2.
Round 2. All right. We will see you guys soon. Thanks again. And welcome back. We're here with round 2 at Thursday Standard at the Wasteland. We've got Daniel Baker on Bant Heroic and Colin Schwartz on Red Green Burn.
Once again in the booth, Nathan Satterfield joined by
Brad Van Slyke. So I actually got to see Bant Heroic played, I believe, in the last SCG Open. I was watching the stream. I'm a fan of the deck. It does a lot of cool things, a lot of interesting interactions. How do you feel about Bant Heroic as an archetypal deck here?
I saw 2 different variations. This is one of which, a new takes on the heroic strategy that I really liked. One splashing for green and one splashing for red. Mm-hmm. This one, perhaps a little more resilient, a little less all-in. The red version splashing for Teamer Battle Rage,
Ooh.
which was spicy, but perhaps not quite as resilient to the hate cards. Mm-hmm. It's just very all-in. This version splashing green for Dromoka's command. Allowing 2 different triggers for heroic because you can target 2 creatures on your side. One can fight and one can get the +1/+1 counter.
Yeah.
It's a very strong card to be playing here. Yeah. Looks like we have the players sitting in the opposite seats here, so we're just going to switch this around. Technology. There we go. We need to switch the archetypes as well, too. Let me just do that real quick. Here we are.
Nothing but the best here at the Wasteland.
Yeah.
So Red Green Burn, you think this is going to be a very similar list to what we saw Jeb playing earlier today, or do you think it's going to be more green heavy? Looks like a Searing Blood takes out the hero of Iroas. Daniel going to go down to 17.
Yeah, here we go. Just had to get all of that sorted out real quick. Okay. 14 here for Daniel after some attacks from the Monastery Swiftspear. And is that once again, Seeker of the Way for Daniel Baker?
Prowess and Heroic work together quite well.
I agree.
Since if it's targeting a creature, it's usually not a creature itself, which means you're going to be seeing, those Heroic triggers and Prowess triggers happening at the same time. You can get some damage up very high very quickly.
That is true. Colin's gotten himself off to a very good start here. One of the more impressive cards in the matchup that he has access to is the Searing Blood. We saw it take out a Hero of Iroas before it was able to get out of the burn spell range and become larger. Here's a copy of Lightning Berserker. 1/1 with haste. Also, it's got fire breathing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's a lot of hype around this card when it first came out.
I believe it's dash for 1.
Dash for 1 as
and
well, yeah.
It's a 2 mana to just play it to the field. Yep, there it is, dashed in.
Dash come down.
2 more damage.
Dash is a mechanic we don't usually get to see a lot of in Standard, except for, of course, Colorgon Storm's Fury as usually a finisher. Mm-hmm. Be very interesting to see how it plays out for Colin.
Yeah, there's only a couple of cards. The most aggressive red decks play cards like Zurgo, who has dash. They play maybe 1 or 2 copies of Goblin Heel Cutter,
just to take out blockers.
Just to avoid having their creatures become blocked. And then, as you said, the dragon, as a member of the Mardu Dragons strategy. Looks like Daniel going to fetch here with his Flooded Strand. Take 1 damage down to 11. Probably going to get his planes. Yep. We'll see what sort of triggers are on the way for this Seeker.
Lifelink, like we mentioned before, burn has a little bit of trouble if you gain too much life, and Heroic Prowess, I can see this guy getting big and gaining a bunch of life back just in a single turn.
It is certainly a card that he needs to be careful with. If he goes all in on it and does not have a protection spell, it could very easily die to a burn spell, because that's certainly what Colin is representing here by not pumping the Lightning Berserker. And he is just going to fire off a burn spell here. See if it's going to be straight at Daniel's face, taking him down to 8.
Yeah, normally Bant
And of course, Colin going to take one from the Mana Confluence. There's a green source.
I was going to say, Bant Heroic's normally a deck that runs several copies of God's Willing in the main board.
Absolutely.
Keeps your dude safe, triggers Heroic, triggers Prowess, as we mentioned before. Protection from red seems like the obvious choice here.
Looks like Daniel does have a copy of Dramoka's Command, but I do not see a green source.
Yeah, it looks like two blue-white temples.
There's a Monastery Mentor.
Ooh.
Very interesting. Let's see if he has a way to trigger it here. No Prowess yet.
I believe I see an Ordeal of Thassa in Daniel's hand.
He may have a Defiant Strike to trigger the Prowess.
So we had an interesting conversation came up with the Ordeals last week. So normally, when when the creature's attacking, you put a counter on it. If it has 3 counters, sacrifice it. The text that says for Ordeal, for example, when this card is sacrificed, draw 2 cards, isn't actually dependent on that first trigger. It's a separate line of text. So if someone perhaps, say, played a Dramoka's Command and made you sacrifice an enchantment, you could just sacrifice it and get the card draw without having to do any of the counter shenanigans.
So it looks like no blocks after the Defiant Strike was played. And he's playing a Tarkus Command to deal 3 and negate the life gain.
I like that play a lot.
So that gives us 14 to 5. And then Colin going to untap, show him some burn spells, and that'll be the game. A quick one here. A very, very good start and a good hand. Very resilient for Colin. Very aggressive, I should say.
Yeah, Defiant Strike is a card you're pretty much not going to see outside of this heroic type deck. I mean, +1/+0, draw a card. Doesn't really do a lot for most decks, but for this one, you're hitting all the right buttons. It's replacing itself. You're getting those triggers because you're really just trying to fill your board with guys that have really great triggers. I believe Phalanx Leader is played in this list. Just, buff your team. Like Heroic has a very interesting concept where with things like Monastery Mentor, it can go very wide, but things like Phalanx Leader, it goes wide and then buffs the whole team. So usually you'll have a deck that goes deep, maybe 1 or 2 big dudes, like a lot of red-green dragons. You only have like 2 creatures on the board, but they're crashing in for a ton of damage. Things like tokens or aggro will go wide with lots of little dudes, whereas the Bant Heroic actually finds a good mid-range in terms of creatures on the board.
Thinking about this matchup a little deeper here, it looks like Daniel has all of the tools that he's going to need to win. I assume that main deck, maybe he doesn't have a whole lot of Ordeal of Heliod's, but he should have up to 4 copies coming in out of the sideboard, whatever was not in. And those, when they trigger, are going to gain him 10 life at a time.
Ooh.
He also has access to Dramoka's Command from his green splash. That's going to be able to negate, effectively, any of Colin's single target burn spells. You just are able to prevent all of the damage.
Yeah.
So lots of effective life gain and actual life gain coming out of the sideboard and main deck building choices here from Daniel.
Plus, as we mentioned before, Lifelink works on all types of damage. So if he has the Dramoka commands and has the guy fight him, he can fight his best dude with that prowess trigger, gain the life off the fight, and then go to combat, swing in, gain that life again.
With the Seeker of the Way.
Seeker of the Way, yes.
I think a lot of combat steps will see things like Aqueous Form, perhaps some copies of Stratus Walk. I don't know that card is very important in this matchup. I don't think that's the sort of thing that Daniel's going to want to bring in. He's got a lot more interesting and more effective business spells. Yeah. Ajani's Presence still does a lot of work in this matchup, makes creatures indestructible. If you strive it, that's wonderful. If not, you're saving a guy, which is perfect, and triggering either Prowess or the Heroic trigger.
Yeah, and like we've seen, Red-Green Burn is doing all of its damage, all of its removal via damage. It's not exiling, it's not sacrificing, so Indestructible is basically going to blank any type of removal Colin has.
That is correct. For Colin here, no access to Skullcrack anymore, so just the Atarka's commands at his disposal to be able to fight the life gain from Ordeal of Heliod. This is really the dance that we're going to have to see. Colin's going to have to represent damage at lots of times and represent Atarka's command, but also put enough pressure on Daniel that he doesn't get outraced himself. Players presenting and cutting. We'll see if they like their hands. We'll get game 2 underway very soon. See one land here for Daniel. I'm not sure he can keep a one-lander. He does have an Ordeal of Heliod in his hand. Mana Confluence being the best land, and yet still the worst, because it makes every color, but at the same time, painful.
Yeah.
And not something you can necessarily afford to have against red. Colin's got multiple copies of lands here. He's going to start off with Temple of Abandon, Scry, bring that to the bottom. Ooh, a temple here for Daniel. That's a good one. Another white source, a green source to help him splash. Defiant Strike. I think that was a copy of Flooded Strand.
Get a heroic trigger.
The trigger on the Hoplite is +1/+1 and prevent all damage that will be dealt to this creature this turn.
Yup. So, I mean, Colin's tapped out, but that seems like a strong effect against the burn. Although usually you're going to respond in response to all the heroic triggers to try to take it out, but it forces them to respond when you're buffing your creatures. They can't wait until combat to do tricks to kind of like try to eke out some advantage. It has to be done right away.
Looks like the very first few draws for Daniel were very fortunate. He's found his third land in this Flooded Strand.
Yeah. I have a Lightning Strike. Okay, answer your only threat.
Interesting here. He could untap and play the Monastery Mentor, or he can choose to represent a protection spell with a 2-drop. We'll see which one he goes for.
I think with a lot of the quick removal, you want to wait on the Monastery Mentor, have a chance to have one of those several protection spells, or one mana saves, or just Defiant Strikes as we saw, just to kind of eke a little value out. Tapping out and having your Monastery Mentor get immediately answered hurts. However, if he goes for the play and Colin doesn't have an answer, untapping with a Monastery Mentor in play with all your mana up is very strong. So it's a high risk, high reward kind of situation.
So we have 17-17 here. Mana Confluence dealing a little bit of extra damage. Also, we missed one off of Defiant Strike. Got that fixed up for you guys.
And looks like we're going to go Seeker of the Way.
Seeker of the Way, indeed. 3 mana here. Looks like Hornet's Nest.
Ooh.
Very interesting one. Difficult for Daniel to maneuver around unless he has one of those Aqueous forms or Stratus Walks that we had mentioned before.
Hornet's Nest, of course, the 0/3 for 3 mana with Defender, but if it ever takes damage, it dumps out that many 1/1 flying Death Touch insect tokens.
It certainly does.
The Hornets.
The combo being with Roast.
Oh, and just, I'll sack my dude and have 5.
If it gets roasted, you get 5 Death Touch insects, and that's going to just trade for everything everywhere, create lots of troublesome.
Were you familiar with the red-green bees deck that was in the last Pro Tour?
I can't say that I was.
So it ran.
Looks like the O2 is an O2. Gonna just chump block, make 2 tokens here. Daniel gonna take 1.
Yeah. So the bees deck did a lot of interesting things. Obviously, it ran 4 copies of Hornet's Nest, 4 copies of the Queen, Hornet Queen.
Yeah.
But it ran a lot of Whisperwoods, so it would manifest cards off the top of its deck like crazy.
It's very interesting.
One guy, not thinking he was just up against a green manifest deck, swung in with a team of 5/5s. He swung in with all his manifested creatures. The guy goes, sure, I'll block that manifest with my 5/5. I'll block this one with my 2/2, that with my 2/2. Flips it up, reveals the one he blocked with the 5/5 was actually a hornet that's manifested. Flips it up, gets the bees.
For him, yeah.
The cries of bees shattered the stream. It was quite the event.
So Daniel plays Monastery Mentor, leaving up the Mana Confluence and passing. Interesting that he's used both of his fetches to get white sources and not blue. So if he wants to make blue mana, unfortunately the only option for him is to take a pain off of his Mana Confluence.
I believe the deck has a lot of double white symbols in some of its low creatures.
It's certainly mainly white. It's just it's just interesting because he's already got 2 white sources that he went and got the third before the second, or excuse me, the first painless blue source.
Yeah, makes sense.
Abbot of Carol Keep revealing a Searing Blood for Colin Schwartz. He's able to play that for the rest of the turn. He's going to attack for 1 with one of those Death Touch Hornets. Unable to cast the Searing Blood. He's going to set it aside. There is a Wild Slash. That's an interesting choice. Looks like he does have
Defiant Strike
to punish him here. The Prowess trigger creating a man and also buffing it, saving it from the spell. Daniel's going to take an extra 1 from activating Mana Confluence. An interesting choice to trade the 2 damage burn spell for the Defiant Strike.
I think he's trying to make a Prowess Monk here, because he can basically trigger Prowess a few times and start swinging that Monk in, and not having to worry about losing a real card to a Hornet token.
It is certainly advantageous for Daniel to make the Monk. Perhaps Colin just, in a way, calling the bluff on Daniel's part, just saying, no, you don't have a trick, and I'd like to kill that. Or at least not a 1-mana trick.
Going for it. And, you know, having him save his dude on his end, or at his second main, instead of coming in with a bigger attack is always nice.
Colin prioritizing the life gain of Seeker of the Way over the token making ability. We'll see.
He's going to Val Stance to give it indestructible.
Yeah, Valorous Stance. So that's going to trigger Prowess, make a creature, pump all of these creatures, give lifelink. So Daniel is going to gain 3 here. And it looks like Colin is going to take 3 here.
Yeah, I believe just the Monastery Mentor was unblocked.
Yeah, so the life totals switch.
And a
4th land here for Colin.
And another Hornet's Nest.
Very interesting.
Definitely feel like this is a card he probably brought in from the side.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very effective in certain matchups. I don't know if Daniel does have access to Aqueous Form. It's not the type of card I'd be looking for here, because if he never attacks into it, you have to spend your own spells that are not going at Daniel's face to trigger it and make even more creatures that may not necessarily do a better job of dealing damage than the spell that you used. I'm not sure, unless he has some information that we don't. I would much rather be playing burn spells and trying to, you know, hit Daniel's creatures in a way that the timing is right.
Colin actually has some very interesting outs you can do with the Hornet's Nest. I feel like we should mention one, especially because, you know, Daniels has a lot of things, as he's shown, that gains a lot of life, lifelink.
Yes.
Mainly the Seekers, but, you know, he's got some other things. If you block a lifelinker with the Hornet's Nest and then use your own burn spells, like a Lightning Strike. Okay, blow up my guy. You'll get the 3 Death Touch tokens. The guy will be blocked. You were going to lose your Hornet's Nest anyway, but now he won't gain the life because no damage was done by that creature, and you still get those 3 flyers. It's a play that I've seen get a lot of people because they're not expecting the burn deck to target its own creatures. But with only 1, well, he can still Wild Slash here. So he threatens that play here, but I'm not sure if Daniel's aware of it.
This is an interesting point. We'll see if we see a Dramoka's command here from Daniel. If he makes the Hoplite fight the token, he's going to be able to save his Monastery Mentor, trigger the Prowess, but then there will be a team of, what, 3?
Yeah, 3 Bs.
3 Bs. Yeah, there's the Dramoka's command. This fights... Oh, perhaps +1/+1 counter, and he's fighting somewhere else. Oh, so he's fighting Monk onto... That doesn't actually die. He's fighting Monk onto Hornet's Nest. There will be 2 more.
So he's having it be 2 Bs.
And he's giving a +1/+1 counter to the Hoplite. So that's 3 damage in.
And again, that will trigger Heroic on the Hoplite.
So 4-5 damage, I believe, all told for Colin. And...
He will gain no life because he was already blocked.
Correct. Because the creature, yes, he fought. Very interesting. So I think the life totals will be 9-17 after that combat.
Yeah, and that's a confirmation from our man on the scene. It's a very interesting line of play.
And of course, another trigger makes a second token for Daniel. Another Abbot of Carol Keep. An exquisite Firecraft. See if he's got another land in his hand to take advantage of this. Otherwise,
it's just gonna be a blank. Oh, he looks like he's gonna fetch.
He does have a Wooded Foothills. See if he chooses to play that or invest his mana in a different way.
He's pretty much got to leave all his creatures up to block here. He can't, with that many heroic and prowess guys on the board, he can't really swing in right now.
Oh, absolutely not. He is wearing Daniel down. I believe Daniel's down to just one card in his hand. If he can trade off of with those Hornets effectively, he can sort of mop up the board. I don't know if he can go for a Hoplite block, but he can block the 2 prowess creatures.
I think, yeah, it looks like he's cracking his land. I think you Firecraft the Seeker here. Well,
he's gonna aim the damage at the Hoplite here
while he can. That makes sense because again,
that makes blocks much more interesting, much less interesting, much safer. Looks like Temple of Plenty was the draw here for Daniel. Can't quite make out what the other card in his hand is.
We got a Thinker for the Scry.
Looks like keeping it on top. Oh, we get word from the table that the card on top is another copy of Dramoka's Command. Very interesting. There's Ordeal of Heliod, so 1 trigger from the heroic. Giving a
Hero by Rose, making that, I believe it's normally a 2-drop, making it down to a 1.
It does reduce the cost of
Auras?
Auras. Yes. So prowess trigger here, a 2/2 and a 3/3 with lifelink rumbling in. Interesting double block from Colin.
Now we know Daniel has no cards in hand right now, right?
That is correct. A very interesting double block from Colin. Not sure about that one. Daniel is going to gain 3.
Yeah. I think he may have just not realized that he was actually
There's another copy of Exquisite Firecraft. That should be enough damage to take out the hero. So clean boards for both players at the moment. Top deck war, we know that Daniel kept Dramoka's Command on top. We'll see what Colin can deploy.
Mana Confluence.
Mana Confluence,
go to
1
8
damage there. Goblin Rabblemaster, the perfect.
Followed up by Rabblemaster.
Double Rabblemaster. Very interesting. So that's 2 damage. Daniel back down to 18.
Fun thing about Rabblemaster, it says all other goblins must attack, and with 2 on the board, that means both Rabblmasters are going to have to come in.
Oh my. So here is 4 and then 14 more, 18 damage. That's lethal, I believe. Is it not lethal? Lagana Band. I thought that attack was lethal.
I believe it brought him to 1.
Brought him down to 1. Well, there's... Well, fight. Target, +1/+1 counter. Heroic, fight. I believe he's still dead to
just the goblins.
All of the creatures on. Daniel's at a very low life total. I believe it's 1.
Looks like he
yeah,
correct
too many goblins.
Ooh, Rabblemaster on an empty board is crazy strong.
Yeah. So both of the Rabblmasters should have triggered off of each other as well. So they should have been 7/2s attacking.
Yeah, because he gets +1/+1 or +1/+0 for every other goblin attacking.
Correct. So coupled with the 4 goblins that were attacking, that was a lethal swing.
Yeah, and each one of them again says all other goblins have to attack, because normally you can just send the token that comes in by itself and they have haste, but since there's two, they actually hit each other, so Rebel Masters have to come in every turn. You can't leave any back.
Very, very interesting match here. I really thought Daniel was going to be able to pull that out. He had such board presence, and then through some slick maneuvering using Hornet's Nest and some exquisite firecrafts, he clears out Daniel's board and then follows it up with two Rebel Masters, and in 2 turns deals an absurd amount of damage. So the two players going over their sideboard strategies here, showing that he brought in some copies of Rose to Destructive Revelry and the 2 Hornet's Nests. Both of those very, very good in the matchup, it would seem.
Destructive Revelry, again, destroy artifact or enchantment. Its controller takes 2.
Absolutely. Looking through Daniel's deck, I don't know if I saw any copies of Aqueous Form at all, which is very interesting. It does look like he brought in some extra copies of Ordeal of Heliod. We see the Ordeal of Thassa sitting on top. We're going to get word whether we will have another feature match here. That one was kind of quick. I think we are getting another match. Just getting the players sorted out and moving them over in between games. We'll have word very quickly. Looks like we're going to have a... Ooh. I believe this matchup coming up, if I'm correct about what both players are playing, we have one of our players approaching the feature match area who's going to be playing a green-black Elves deck that has access to Rally the Ancestors. So a bit of a spicy brew. And then on the other side, I think we have Talon Karen playing green-black Megamorph. Unless he has changed decks. That is what we saw him play last week. We'll see if he is still running that here tonight.
All right, we got one more match, at least for this round. They're going to game 3. We have Michael Winger on Elves and Talon Karen on Jeskai Aggro.
Oh, so Talon has switched his deck. Very interesting. I told some of the viewers at home an interesting point about Michael's deck. He's running Rally the Ancestors. So he's sort of an Abzan colored.
I actually like Rally in the Elf. You play it kind of when you've hit that point where they've answered all your Elves, because everything that it plays is 4 at most. You know, you 6 mana, you get back 7, 8, 9, 10 Elves even, and then if you have either of those Shamans in the pact, that you just kill them with 20 damage right there. All the Elves come in, every Shaman in there sees every other one. They just do tons of damage.
Was there any word about who is up a game? Or
we're going to game 3.
Going to game 3. Okay.
Yeah. So I believe the Jeskai seems to be an interesting list because we heard it was Jeskai Aggro with a shout of many, many counterspells. Which I don't know if that's post board or not, since this is game 3. Countering those Shaman of the Packs is a really strong priority whenever playing against an Elves deck.
Just getting everything set up here, changing over all of the information so we have it correct for you guys at home. And Jeskai
Aggro, yes.
Aggro. All right. Last week we saw Talon on the green-black Megamorph strategy. He was running very interesting Evolutionary Leap.
Yeah. Evolutionary Leap is a card I really like in kind of the grindy decks, because a lot of the trades you're making are usually you're not trading your creatures because you have a lot of 2/2s or 3/3s. They're usually getting answered with, as we've seen tonight, a flurry of burn spells. So if your creature's going to die anyway, spending extra green to draw the next creature spell in your deck seems really good. I'm not sure if he's going to be running that in Elves. I wouldn't expect it, but I could see it.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain. I looked through Michael's deck earlier, and I did not see that. It looked like a very standard green-black elves deck. He's made room for a couple of spicy ones, though. He is playing the rally. Talon's deck, probably going to be playing Jace, maybe some Ojutai's Command, perhaps Harbinger of the Tide, very spicy one to couple, and then Jace. Jeskai Ascendancy, classic staple of this deck.
Probably not going to try to be comboing off with Mana Dorks.
No.
As much as the Jeskai Infinite combo was fun, it wasn't quite that resilient.
That's true. We're getting word that Talon is going to be on the play for Game 3 here. See a couple of copies of Hordling Outburst here for Talon.
Yeah.
And some unglued basic lands for Michael.
I believe there's an Urborg.
As an Urborg. He's also got
Elvish
Mystic. Yes.
Yeah. Talon will be keeping his 7, and it looks like as will Michael. Temple of Triumph. Temple of Triumph.
Slow start for Talon. Just setting up his draws here. See what Michael can do with this extra mana from the Elvish Mystic.
Now, are we going to see any Guiltleaf Winnowers from Michael?
I do not remember seeing any.
He's going to Shaman early, just
Shaman
take
of the
2.
pack.
Try to stick some threats, swing in.
Get you for 2.
It's the new uncommon from Magic Origins. It is 1 black-green for a 3/2 elf that when it enters the battlefield, it deals damage to your opponent equals the number of elves you control. Oh, and we have a Mantis Rider, turn 3. Flying Haste Vigilance, 3/3.
Absolutely. We're going to get those lands behind those creatures as God intended. Thank you very much to our table spotter. So the race here looking very good for Talon unless Michael can change things up. The 3/2 crashing in. Don't think we'll see a block here. Both players having incentives to build up their board states. Talon wants to keep creatures on the field to apply pressure and make those burn spells in his hand slightly better if they can go to the face or to creatures. Having the option to do both and get full value is where he wants to be. Looks like he does just take the 3. Of course, Michael wanting to keep elves on the field because he is playing the shamans of the pack. So the more elves, the better.
Looks like a Llanowar Wastes. Gonna take the... Well, no, he doesn't have to take the 1.
I think we're going to see
Company.
Visionary off of the company as well as another
shaman.
I think that's what I see.
Take 4, draw a card. Pretty good for 4 mana.
Oh, no.
Oh, Nissa.
Copy of Nissa.
And Shaman. I like
So
that.
That's very good. I like that. Trigger that. That's going to hit him for
4 damage.
4.
And then he'll grab a
to
4 side
11.
of his deck.
Absolutely.
Well, Collected Company puts the cards that aren't found on the bottom of the deck, correct?
Correct.
So I actually like this play here because there was another Collected Company in the 6 that we revealed off the first.
So he
getting the
doesn't
shuffle,
mind shuffling it back, maybe possibly near the top of his library again.
because instant speed, shaman out of nowhere can really, really hurt.
Absolutely. Michael building up a very threatening board state here. Haven't seen hint of the white splash just yet.
I think he's a little light on lands, which is why I also like the Nissa play. Get that force to hand, smooth out some stuff.
He'll have his 4th land next turn for sure. There's an attack from Talon.
That
in the
flying
air.
vigilance
Unblockable.
Never has to leave it back to block next turn. It just crashes in unhindered.
The type of game that Talon wants to play is to stick a threat, not unlike this Mantis Rider, and then quote unquote ride it to victory with removal spells and counter spells. I apologize for the pun, but not really. I'm
Don't never apologize.
No, not at all.
Ooh.
Merciless Executioner
That's...
met with a clash. Clash for 2, I believe.
Yeah, because he's got the Mystic.
No, excuse me. That was the Scry counterspell.
Dissolve.
Dissolve.
Oh, that's the F&M promo art.
Yes. Looks like a block on Nissa. He's going to take 7 damage.
And he'll go Land Elf. We'll replace.
Yeah. He had to take 1 from his Painland, perhaps? Missing where that other piece of damage came
Yes,
down.
he needed both sources of blue to get that dissolve.
Correct.
So yeah, he had to use his Shivian Reefs.
Dissolve is, of course, double blue.
Looks like we have a Seeker of the Way. Maybe Trick here gains some life back.
Being able to block with it could be very big.
Shaman here just ends it unless he's got the... No, Clash doesn't even help. Elves in a very strong position right now. 2. None.
We'll see how Michael decides to sequence this.
I think that's an Abzan Charm in his hand?
I think it's Sandstep Citadel.
No, yeah. I'm catching
so there's that white mana. I don't see a copy of Rally Ancestors, but there is the hint there.
He's just going to crash in and...
Just making blocks. We'll see if there are any prowess triggers. Passing priority back. Just gonna trade them both off and take 2, go down to 1.
Go to 1. Oh, that's the new Dwyer's Elite, I believe. It's the 2/2 for 2, and if you have another elf, it makes a 1/1 elf warrior. So he's basically just refilling his board set here. You're probably... I was gonna say you're hoping for an Anger of the Gods.
Yes. For
Dissolve.
sure.
Yeah, he can't. Those dissolves are dead in his hand with only 1 source of blue, and he's at 1 life.
That's correct. Talon making good use of the cards that he had. Unfortunately, Michael's draw very, very aggressive, and able to punish those tap lands early from Talon. Talon never able to get his feet underneath him. Collected Company
definitely did work.
Okay, so looks like Michael Winger is going to take this match 2 games to 1. And that is going to do it here for round 2.
Round 2.
At the Wasteland
Thursday Standard Tournament. I'm a big fan of the Elves deck. You think we're going to see some at regionals this weekend?
I would be very surprised if no one in the room was playing it.
Yeah. As we saw before, like a Collected Company, you got 3 or 4 Elves out, you can fetch 2 Shamans, and all of a sudden they're at 1 swing away.
Yep, so once again, we'd like to reward you guys for watching. We thank you for tuning in. But even more thanks, we like to think, would be a coupon code. So we're going to give that to you now. If you go to the wastelandgaming.com, we have a coupon code for you, and that is STREAM, the word STREAM, STREAM, in all caps, 10% off.
Yep. As we mentioned before, regionals Saturday, use that coupon code, get the last things to finish out your deck, maybe get some foil, style out a little bit, make your mama proud. Again, that regionals will be at Santa Fe Mall, right across from the Wasteland. We want people there starting at 9 a.m.?
I believe so.
Yeah,
registration starts at 9.
Yeah, so we can fire off the event right at 10 o'clock. It's going to be a blast. We hope to see you all there.
All right. Once again, thank you. We will see you back for round 3.
And welcome back. We are here at round 3 of Thursday Night Standard here at the Wasteland. We have Colin again with his red-green burn, and Joseph Anderson running blue-black Thropters.
Yeah, we wanted to get at least on camera once tonight someone playing Thopter Spy Network because the card is too sweet not to put on showcase.
It's so much fun. I got to play with it a bit in Limited, and even in Sealed or Draft, it's just a blast. Looks like we're going to start with a Scryland for Joe, and just crash in immediately for 1 with Monastery Mentor.
Joe's going to start off the classic turn 2 play of hang your back
for
Walker.
1.
Yep. Of course, an XX casting cost. So it's as large as you want it to be. Gets +1/+1 counters equal to X. And you can pay 1 and tap it to make it larger.
Yep. And when it dies, it puts a 1/1 flying artifact creature, a Thropter token, into play for each counter on it.
There's a Searing Blood. Gonna trigger Prowess.
He's just swinging.
Just gonna take 5 damage here, looks like.
Well, he will be able to...
Oh, I suppose he could block with the Thopter token.
Yeah, I believe he already attacked and he said no blocks. Yeah, there's sequencing their plays there. Okay.
Here we go. Perhaps, yeah, post-combat. Getting confirmation on exactly what has transpired here.
Red-green burn, as always, goes fast. Yeah, and that, again, as we thought, life total is currently Colin at 20, Joe at 15.
Another just blind attack here with the Monastery. Just going to be 1.
Is that a roast? No.
No, not a copy of Roast. I think it's Dragon Fodder.
Oh, yes, once again,
This is the newer printing of Dragon Fodder. And then a Temple of Abandon. Scry, cap top. Joseph seems fine with all of these things. Perhaps contemplating end of turn Hero's Downfall. Yep. Gonna see that target the Monastery Mentor, take it out. I'm not sure he feels comfortable enough in the spot to play a Spy Network. Here's a copy of Ashiok, Nightmare Weaver.
Ashiok, again, has the plus ability to exile 3 cards out of their deck. It can -X to play any creature with CMC X or less. And then its ult is to exile that player's hand and library.
Hand and Graveyard.
Hand and graveyard.
Yes.
Not library. That would be exceedingly strong.
The Identity Crisis mode.
Yeah.
Removing.
Not quite Jace the Mind Sculptor levels of Ultimate.
No, certainly not. The interesting thing to note about the Ultimate is that you can also use the second ability on any of those things exiled from the graveyard.
Because the minus is any card exiled with Ashiok.
That's correct. So the plus ability or the -10.
Looks like Colin getting rewarded here with his Abbot. Revealed a land off the top to exile. Was able to play it.
Looking to go ahead and pop the Foothills. Yeah, there it is. Down to 19. Probably just another mountain. Mm-hmm.
I feel like in this matchup, Burn needs to be swinging as hard as it can early before the control deck kind of gets set up. Because once we hit a thing like Languish, or maybe a Crux of Fate, things like that, I feel like Burn's gonna have a trouble catching back mana up for board wipes and counter spells, things like that.
Looks like Colin with this attack is representing Stoke the Flames. There's a block from Joe. Tokens, of course, hit the graveyard and they get exiled. Yeah,
and we're going to see Stoke.
You. Joe down to 10. Colin's ability to close out these games with burn spells, I think, is not to be underestimated in these situations. I don't know if he needs to prioritize getting Ashiok off the field. My gut says no. Especially because it missed with its first ability. It did not hit a creature. He could not bring something in to slow down Colin's offense. He can still just continue to swing and swing through whatever Joe has.
Next turn, he will have the ability to bring in a Rabble Master.
Who knows if that may be too little too late. There's another copy of Stoke the Flames in Colin's hand. We will see if Joe has Counterspell available.
He's representing Negate, Clash. Is that 2 mana?
That looks like a copy of Zurgo with Dash and a Dash Lightning Berserker. So lots of creatures coming in for this combat step. Colin looking to maximize damage right now. Hangerback Walker going to get in front of the potentially most threatening Lightning Berserker. I think he just wants to get that off so that he doesn't have to deal with it later.
Is that a Reeve Soul?
I believe that is ultimate price.
Ultimate price. Okay.
So gonna take out the monocolored Zurgo.
Saying
so that he doesn't have to worry about these hasted creatures any longer. He may be able to untap and Languish and then play he's got a Thopter, so he may be able to untap Languish and then minus Ashiok to get himself
Rabble Master.
It's the same whether he attacks or does not attack and does all of this main one. Because he'll be able to either attack with a Goblin. I believe he should not attack because then he'll have the Goblin post Languish, if that is the line that I'm thinking he's going to take.
Well, the Goblin token only comes into play at beginning of combat.
Correct. Right.
Yeah.
If it would not be there if he attacks with the
Correct.
Thopter.
Correct. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yes. And then 3 damage taken from Joe. 19 to 7, the life totals here.
I like those blocks a lot there because, with dash creatures, they return to your hand at the end of turn, basically making those creatures immune to sorcery speed removal. Now, there's not a ton of sorcery speed in the control deck, but it's still good to answer them while you can.
So the exact line I mentioned just a moment ago, Joe unfortunately missing his 5th land drop, which is a very important thing for these decks to be able to hit. You have to be able to continue to grow your mana base. At the same time, you need a card like the Thopter Spy Network or perhaps Artificer's Epiphany to continue drawing cards so that you can maintain parity on the board, and also looks like a second main phase Rabble Master here. Yeah. Perhaps a mistrigger. More likely the former. Joe's got several cards in his hand, none of them lands. Going to plus, hits a Stoke, Exquisite Firecraft,
lands.
And a land.
While that does whiff, stripping burn spells out of the deck isn't a bad thing, although with the amount of cards left in Colin's library, I don't think it's going to be super relevant.
Yeah, and all of his cards are super redundant, so one good burn spell
We're going to see a dig
the same
here.
as the next. Looks like end of turn. No, excuse me, main phase dig. I think Joe's going to try and find a land here. Perhaps another copy of Ultimate Price. Something similar.
Yeah, he plays an untapped land here. I think we saw a Swamp in there. He represents a good amount of tricks.
Mm-hmm.
Probably grab a land, play it, and grab your best removal spell you think is going to help.
He may also just be digging. Like, if he can find Darksteel Citadel here, coupled with a Thopter Spy Network, that's the perfect way to set himself up to win this long game. Dismal Backwater is also a reasonable substitute if he can't find the Darksteel Citadel, because at least that does gain him a life. And there's not a whole lot he's going to be doing with the mana right now. He did have to tap double blue, so the players are rewinding that back and fixing it. There's the Dismal Backwater, just as we say.
Mm-hmm. Gain that life. Take you. There's a lot of instances of 3s and 4s for burn spells. Going from 7 to 8 actually is relevant. Because like a lightning